In 2018, Japan-based service provider Rakuten Mobile surprised the industry by announcing a revolutionary approach to building its new network, using multiple infrastructure from multiple partners to create an open cloud-native operation. Last August, it launched Rakuten Symphony, a new business organization to spearhead the global adoption of cloud-native Open RAN infrastructure and services. It's now ready to take the next steps with an innovative new platform to help other telecom operators scale their networks with a suite of next-generation network software apps. But what exactly is Rakuten Symphony hoping to achieve? And why does CEO Tareq Amin believe his company has the magic sauce necessary to succeed? Well, I'm delighted to say that Tareq Amin joins us today from Tokyo. Tareq, very good to see you again. I'm not the only one who's been following Rakuten's progress intently in recent years, so too has the whole industry. Now, we're going to address the implications of your news announcements, but we're also going to be discussing the broader issues faced by telcos and why you feel that a new approach is urgently needed. And I know that you also have a challenge that you're going to put to operators, and we'll hear about that later towards the end of the program. But let's get to the heart of the matter straight away. Let me ask you, what do you see is the problem? What are the limitations that led you to launch Symphony?
Delighted to be here with you today. I think, one of the things that I look at is what really has happened in our industry since we launched the first G. I think, to my knowledge, it was in 1981, if I'm not mistaken. And as we looked at the evolution of technology and we looked at adjacent verticals, and especially around cloud, I really thought that the agility that exists in telecom industry, the fast pace of how we introduce services really lagged behind. It lagged substantially if you compare to what existed in hyperscalers and the enterprise world. And when we started the dream and the idea of building Rakuten Mobile in Japan, especially entering as a fourth mobile operator, we knew that we needed a very different approach. We knew that we cannot compete with the same existing architecture that existed from 1980 till today. We knew that we needed to move away from the complexity of hardware and move into a new software world, as a world in which AI, machine learning, and autonomy starts to take presence. So the formulation of Symphony started with an idea in 2019. And the idea, if I could share with you, the excitement that my team have saw when we enabled the first live call in Rakuten Mobile, I knew then that this is transformative. I knew then the elegance of life cycle management, especially on the VNFs that we deployed in Open RAN, and what it meant in terms of service agility, service resiliency, and the ability to truly get a network that's plug and play, zero touch provisioning, and deliver better customer experience. I knew that this is really something that we shouldn't just leave in Japan and we should share with the rest of the world.
As you say, Tareq, it's something you want to share with the rest of the world. So this is big picture stuff we're talking about. It's industry-wide, and we're talking about a global industry with mature operations in every country of the world, established operations and partnership models, hundreds of companies here, thousands. Are you saying that they've all got it wrong, or that they're all heading in the wrong direction?
I don't think it's an idea whether they got it right or wrong. I think the idea is, how can Rakuten and my team look at fast-paced acceleration of transformation? The way that we looked at it is the current solutions that exist in the marketplace. We thought these are uneconomical, unfeasible for today's challenges. It's just a very different construct today in terms of what existed and the innovations that came on cloud. So what I believe is we got stuck as an industry as a whole. I mean, me personally, been doing this for 26 years. I've seen what happened in the early days and the complexities of rolling out networks. And while we always thought of a world in order for us to upgrade into one generation of technology to the other is about hardware swaps, I personally got influenced, not necessarily by what happened in telecom, but what is happening in the hyperscalers world. I was inspired to see the services and the agility that is launched in the cloud environment. And I think this is really the epiphany of the problem that I believe. When we talk about the killer app, whether it is for a killer app for 4G or a killer app for 5G. My personal humble opinion, this killer app is the network, a network that's built on the cloud. So the issue, I believe, is, maybe we all got caught around the skills that we have within the organization, not paying attention to what is happening on adjacent verticals, not paying attention to the fast pace of transformation that was largely happened because of adoption of cloud and the elasticity and the elegance that the cloud brought. I think really that is the intersection point that the industry is facing. And when I look at my colleagues and the industry as a whole, I think there is an acceptance now that the reality is this is a matter of survivability, the ability for you to move your existing workloads from proprietary hardware, legacy hardware, into a cloud architecture. I don't think anybody would argue that this is the right journey and the right destinations that they need to move towards.
Well, let's go into some detail now about perhaps the reasons why we as an industry got caught out and got stuck in our current ways of thinking and operations. It's fair to say that we all acknowledge them to various degrees. As you say, the industry sees what it needs to do now, hopefully, although we may be short of answers. I mean, the first shortcoming perhaps is that the telco industry is simply not competitive. What would you say to that? Competitive how, and with whom should the telecoms industry be competitive?
Well, I think if you look at it, I mean, I'll give you my own opinion about what I see fundamentally as a bigger problem. I think all of us had to face and develop some solutions to address. I really think in terms of the innovation that would exist in telco. Of course, we have accelerated speed adoption. We have accelerated the ability to deliver unparalleled experience when it comes to wireless experience. But the way that innovation is delivered in telecommunication, I also found something fundamentally is wrong of how we absorb this innovation. If I ask you today, how many startups today a telecommunication company would endorse, would adopt, would deploy into their construct of this network? To my knowledge, maybe you will find very few. Why VCs do not like to invest in telecommunication companies? Well, there must be a reason for all of this. We must really stand up and say, time is of the essence for us to think practically about who we want to be in the future. If it was me, and in fact, that's exactly what I've done in Rakuten Mobile. My first approach, I did not go for the larger companies. I went to see what is there in the world as a whole. Looking at Altio Star, that I thought was unbelievable in terms of their ideas and disruptions, but yet nobody wanted to give them a chance to transform, disrupt, and implement something, especially that people believed it's the magic sauce of radio networks, which is radio access. I looked at SON startups, that nobody believed that they should exist because the complexities of integration, the software stack with base station radio software, all these things resonated very much with myself and my team as we evaluated how we bring the best in breed, regardless if you're small or big, integrate them together to generate outcomes that are just absolutely amazing. So that's, to me, the bigger problem today is that we need to drive innovation at a faster pace. We need to accept some risks. Yes, and we have to work with startups and we have to acknowledge them, endorse them. We have to show them paths to revenue in order for us to materialize the dreams that we all want. And I think this is the right approach. I am now focused quite a bit looking and evaluating all the adjacency of verticals, whether you look today at the transformation that's happening, for example, in auto industry. It is no longer about electric vehicles. It is a platform of autonomous cars of driving. That is, to me, what I aspire for Telecom and what I aspire for Rakuten Symphony to deliver to the masses.
You're right about the lack of support for startups in the industry. I mean, is it a case of the risk simply outweighs the new possibilities? Because I'm sure there's a lot of CTOs out there who'd love to bring in some new companies and support some new companies, but for some reason or another, they're prohibited for doing so. The risk seems just too great.
Well, I mean, there's two things I could tell you. There is, if there is no pain, there is absolutely no gain. And, when you bring a startup, one must accept that treating a startup like a mature, large vendor or partner you need to remove those abstractions from your mind. You need to accept that a startup need to be mentored, need to be nurtured, need to be, sorry to say this, loved. You need to show them a little bit of love on how they developed and evolve, and you need to believe into them. Once that happens, I mean, I can't tell you the elegance of the emotions that would go into building the foundation of these startups. So risk, of course, is a big issue. I found many companies are worried, and maybe sometimes, we hide behind the curtain and says, well, I can't take this risk because I need to deliver on a carrier grade services. While that is true, there's a way to manage these risks with a startup. And the second reason I also will tell you, incubating startups into your operation and incubating your startups into your culture requires unbelievable motivation and dedication to make the startup successful within your environment. So I would tell you it's hard work. It's hard work. But for me, if anybody, hopefully listening to this discussion with us today, if anybody wants to see a true results of what happens when you believe and you invest energy, passion, emotion in innovation and startup culture, I mean, the result to me is just incredible. I mean, what's happened in Japan should speak for itself. And come and look at the composition of the companies that Rakuten Mobile have selected, and to a certain extent are now part of Rakuten Symphony ecosystem.
Well, we're going to come on to culture a little bit later in our discussion, but I want to put a couple of points to you first, because I guess one easy criticism to make from the industry is that the approach you're advocating here is applicable to greenfield deployments, all very well and good, but it's not applicable to brownfield. What's your answer to that?
You know, this is one of my favorite questions that I get asked, as you know, almost all the time. And let me maybe tell you and tell all the audience that, you know, if you look at Japan, first of all, we have to acknowledge that the choices of the architecture of the technology was a choice. You know, maybe the easier path for me would have been, okay, select a legacy vendor. There's nothing new. The outcome is predictable. You don't have to really work hard in terms of making something that I think is good for the industry as a whole, not just about Rakuten Mobile. So, one, I want to really make sure that we all understand that, yes, Rakuten Mobile was a greenfield, but first of all, it was a choice. And for many people that know the history of Rakuten Mobile, before I came to Japan, Rakuten Mobile was well on its way to select a traditional legacy infrastructure to deploy this network. And one of my first jobs on my first day in Japan was to cancel this RFP, select a harder path, but one that I think will have a much rosier outcome than following our legacy architecture that we've been going at. When it comes to brownfield, I also would tell you that I heard this question many times. I would tell you my technology stack today has many compatibility of software features. You should judge me on the capability of our delivery to customer quality experiences. You deploy Rakuten Symphony stack and its technology and compare our solution versus what you currently have in the brownfield. I am not discounting the challenges of transformation, but truthfully, the challenges has nothing to do with technology and has everything to do with organization, culture, and mindset. So I am completely committed to ensure that we look at brownfield as a massive opportunity for Rakuten Symphony. One that we're going to find like-minded partners that want to go through this journey of transformation the same way maybe Rakuten Mobile made its early choices. I think there are amazing companies today across this world that's looking at what we have done, recognizing that foundation of cloud, foundation of software, and the essence of the skills and the organization is really something that absolutely makes sense for them to embrace into this journey. And yes, it will be hard, but believe me, the end destination is just unbelievable. What they'll realize is an opportunity to transform an organization, maybe that was primarily focused on connectivity, to a truly organization that may be focused on services and digitization of new internet streams that would generate revenues that far outpace the revenues that you will bring from connectivity.
So, for all those operators out there with established brownfield operations and networks in place, do you think they rely perhaps too much on seeing this new generation of technology turning up every few years that in the end doesn't actually transform anything despite a lot of promises?
Well, I mean, I think you have to ask, a very simple question, and let me give you a very specific answer to this because a really really good question. Um, Take an example in Japan. There was some announcement from a very very large incumbent in Japan that they want to stop narrowband IoT deployment in Japan. Now, I'm going to give you my hypotheses to these reasons, and it answers the question that you have posed to me. Um, when new technology is introduced in telecom company, I think the process of introducing this technology is still very much reliant on hardware. In case of the example I give you about narrowband IoT, in case of Japan, I think this large incumbent in Japan canceled the deployment of NB-IoT just because of enormous cost structure. Now, to support narrowband IoT, one discovers that, hey, I have to go to this baseband card, I have to add new shelves in the baseband. In some cases, I have to replace it. Now, take Rakuten approach in mobile in Japan and Rakuten Symphony approach. When you are dealing with cloud and software, there is no discussion anymore that I could innovate in software far more than I could ever do on hardware. I could now introduce a feature like narrowband IoT overnight, every single base station of Rakuten Mobile with one flag equals on, every single site is now narrowband IoT capable. As we move to cloud, edge cloud, the ability to truly meet this phrase, which is future proof, now might actually make sense. It makes sense just because the construct of the architecture is just fundamentally changed. It makes sense because now you're living on the cloud, your application layers will consume a beautiful infrastructure that is built on an underlying Kubernetes architecture, and you innovate at a speed, at the same speed that enterprises across the world has innovated. So my belief is if the foundation changes, then this idea of future technology advancement, future technology evolution, and future proofing actually might make sense for the first time ever in the telecom industry.
Well, we talked about the need to innovate faster. We've talked about this within the industry for years and years. We've talked about the need to be future-proof and innovate way better than we're doing at the moment. Why isn't this change happening faster? You talk there about being able to switch on services and capabilities instantaneously, almost. But why, generally, isn't the change happening faster? What do we need to do to make it happen faster?
Well, I mean, I think this goes back to the question you asked me about is the Brownfield more challenging? I mean, I sometimes mention that the question I wish I got asked isn't whether Rakuten Mobile is a greenfield or a new operator, but the construct of the skills that I have was actually the greenfield and mindset, mentality, determination to our overall mission. So I would tell you the essence of this transformation that we need to do must start with the organization. The organization itself must believe that it is absolutely time is now for them to start looking at new opportunities to embrace new services, drive better efficiency and productivity from the existing organization, and really migrate to a world in which they live in the world of software, that agility is derived from the characteristics of the architecture that gets deployed. So the first problem I believe I would need to solve before I talk about technology, I must solve, if I'm a CEO of any telecom company or a CTO, my number one challenge that I would worry about the most, it's not about technology. It's about organization, people, and skill set. You address those items, everything else becomes really, I would say, much easier in terms of your adoption, towards future architecture and future technology. When you adopt a new agile way of thinking, a new agile organization, a new skilled organization that really understand very much the architecture of what really cloud means, what microservices means, what cloud native means, when this is all come together, then, by the way, this question about agility is automatically fixed. These individuals will be able to take your organization from where it is today into a world that I believe where everybody wants to be, a blueprint that is absolutely built on a new cloud platform that allows you to innovate at the speed and the scale that the cloud will provide you in this infrastructure. So yeah, I mean, I think really it goes back to the bigger problem that I feel that exists is the structure, organization, and the culture and mindset to be able to commit to a path of transformation.
Well, let's just pick up on that then, Tarek, because, as you say and have said, it's not just about the technology. The people, the culture are absolutely paramount. You've got to get that right. How difficult has it been to assemble a team, a new team, with the necessary skill sets that are future-proofed?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to tell you this has been a simple journey. I mean, I'll give you a little bit more of a personal story. You know, that when I came to Japan, of course, there was a few individuals in the organization that really believed that my ideas were very risky. You know, to go and build a concept that hasn't been validated, hasn't been trialed. You know, I got tons of pushback, and I knew that this is going to be a bigger problem for me. So one of the key things and the key tenets was ensuring that on how we assemble this team is the inclusion and diversity, meaning recruit from anywhere in the world, regardless of your nationality or gender. But I am always recruiting for the mindset. In fact, I almost did not care about what you have done in your previous life. I was interviewing you for your mindset and your capabilities to think differently, think outside of the box, and not to be restricted because this did not happen this way in telecom. We cannot follow a new path. So, and what happened, this is the amazing thing for me, is I did most of the recruiting myself. I enjoyed going onto various social media outlets, finding the right people. And in fact, till today, I still do the same thing. Around midnight time, I enjoy going and just reflecting back about what we have done. And what I was after is just looking about people that comments on my posts, looking for people that are compatible with our thoughts, our culture, our DNA. And then I would reach out to them. I would contact them, and I would, no matter which part of the world you're in, I would give you an idea that if you believed in this vision, it's a great place for you to come. Rakuten as a company have embraced into DNA English as a standard language in Japan. And then the magic happened. Once I recruited the first 10 people, they started to tell the industry about the crazy things that we're doing. And I no longer needed to seek people. People were seeking us because in this industry, it turned out to be that there are so many people that wanted to do what we are doing, but they never been given the opportunity to disrupt, to innovate, to take the risks. And frankly speaking, we furnished this for them. I told them, you don't need to worry. I'm here for you. I will take the risk. I will back you up, but I have conditions. You have to be agile. We cannot allow bureaucracy in the organization. And you got to think outside of the box to do something that hasn't happened in our industry. And so, frankly speaking, early days was challenging. And as time progressed, and as people really discovered what we're working on, and as they discovered our culture and our agility, the process of recruiting became much, much easier. It's amazing. This world is full of talented people. We just need to give them the tool sets and the motivation and give them all the encouragement to disrupt.
Well, that's very good to hear, and it's a refreshing approach, and it fits in with what you say about a new way of doing business. But at the moment, you're very much under the microscope. There's a lot of people looking and scrutinizing your every move. What's the guarantee that your approach will work or be better than what we currently have?
I mean, what I would tell you, for me personally, I would say it's nothing new. Since 2018, when we announced, this crazy idea of virtualization, I remember, if I'm not mistaken, I went to Mobile World Congress in February 2019 or so, and we announced to the world this idea. We had Rakuten had its own exhibition just to demonstrate the concept. Now, at that time, keep in mind, it was just idea. And I can't really tell you, frankly speaking, it's not like I have a predictable path that this is going to succeed. But the truth is, not a single moment that came to my mind where it says, Tareq, you need a plan B. That never really occurred an instant. And the reason it never occurred to my mind is because I looked at my organization and my team, and I was absolutely convicted that the passion, motivation of this team is just absolutely phenomenal. So we have, in the early days, many companies that said, Open RAN will fail for the following reasons. And every reason they talked about, we managed to fix the problem because our head was in the right space. We were just focused on not problems, but okay, I understand we have tons of issues. How do we narrow down and focus on solutions? How do we make sure that every day we're making little progress, we're fixing problems? The more I realized the implications of this software architecture, the more I realized that, look, if you have a software issue and you fix it in the code base, this is a relatively straightforward idea. It's much easier than if I had a hardware issue that I have to deal about, hardware spin-offs and manufacturing and many other things. So I knew that we're heading into the right direction. And of course, now we cleared the hurdles. And as many of you know and have heard from the industry as a whole, when we launched, many discussions came about saying, well, Open RAN only works in rural areas. We said, okay, well, to my thinking, I think Tokyo is not rural, so I must work here. We launched in Tokyo. Third party came audit in Tokyo. The point is, I think we had many, many skeptics in the early days, and I understand the reasons, and I understand, all the motivations behind the skepticism. But we never lost faith, and we will never lose faith as we approach now Rakuten Symphony with a way to change this industry for the better, we believe. So the living lab for us continues to be Rakuten Mobile. We build an unbelievable high quality network. We knew exactly the vision that we had to drive into Rakuten Mobile, to derive on efficiency, and hopefully in the future, complete autonomous architecture for this network in Japan. It is not to say that we will not have issues, but it is to say that our job is to ensure that to partner, collaborate, and focus on solutions, not problems. So I'm absolutely optimistic that what we have created architecturally is sound, it's scalable, and if you believe in cloud, and if you believe in the merits of cloud, then I would tell you Rakuten Symphony is absolutely the right partner for you.
Well, let's go back to the origins of Rakuten Symphony for a moment, because it comes in part from the Rakuten Communications Platform, RCP, that you announced back in August as a stack of access, core, cloud, and operations solutions. So how did RCP first come about? You spoke about when you first had that moment when you saw the light and realized what was possible. But when were you first convinced that there was actually a business here? Can you just tell us a little bit more about the origin of RCP?
So, I think I've talked about this many times before, but I never really envisioned. I was brought here to build the mobile infrastructure in Japan. My job assignment wasn't, hey, Tareq, let's take infrastructure stack that we have done to Japan and globalize it. However, during this journey, and I remember in 2019 we had our first official call on an Open RAN architecture that is an application deployed as a VNF on our cloud environment. That day, to reach to this one call, the complexity that we had to deal with and the lessons learned was just unprecedented. I quickly, to be very honest with you, I quickly learned that not all clouds are built the same. I had to learn and understand, the difference between a Linux host kernel that is built for IT and a Linux host kernel that requires real-time processing in order to guarantee the predictability that a workload like radio access work. And as we fix these hurdles, they are complex technology challenges, by the way. They are not easy. To scale, it is always easy to go into a lab and say, I have done a POC. But to scale and operate at a mass capacity was a daunting challenge. And the more that we continue to fix, the more that we continue to package the solution. Somewhat at the end of 2019, I went to our chairman and CEO, Mickey. I said, Mickey, I think we are really, really doing something that is just amazing. And we should not just leave this in Japan. We should start thinking about how we package the lessons learned, all the issues that we deal with, all the improvements that we have done. It is absolutely our job now to share these experiences with the rest of the world. And of course, packaging this wasn't also trivial, and RCP itself was a concept and idea that started with cloud first, then looking at an opportunity to bring a mature Open RAN software on top of the cloud, the operation systems to orchestrate, do the lifecycle management. All of this started to come together. And I said, maybe at the latter end of 2019 is when we realized that we need to take this out. And as we launched this network and we continue to improve it, and the commercial launch was around April 2020, it became absolutely clear to us that we have to take this to the rest of the world.
I read a comment at the launch of Symphony that said you were looking to solve practical problems at an industry scale. What do you mean by that?
So we constructed or deconstructed the way that networks are planned, engineered, and operated across the various silos of organization that exist in any mobile operator, regardless of geography. And one of the key, things that just absolutely appear to us is the fragmentation of applications that one needs to manage the entire technology stack. And what I mean by that is, let's assume you're an engineer and you say, I will require an application to do fault management, performance management, configuration, accounting, security. By the time you're done, if you're a large operator, you might end up with thousands of silos application that are not interconnected. They have different data architecture platforms. And the way that we dealt with this as an industry is said, okay, well, let them be siloed. Then we'll build data connectors on top of them. We'll build data lake architecture. Then we'll build AI. But to us, we thought this is just absolutely a legacy way in terms of how you should deal with modern technology architecture. It is not just about the cloud. It is also about the data that you need to manage the cloud and the applications on top of the cloud. And one of the most intriguing ideas which we announced, was about Symworld. Now, for us, the industrialization of how you browse, consume, purchase, deploy, anything and everything you need to run and manage your network will be offered through Symworld. Now, Symworld is the world first telecom app store for the entire network infrastructure, whether it is large applications that you require for IMS Core, Open RAN, or applications that you will need for OSS or BSS. The ability to browse, no different than what you browse in your mobile devices, these sets of applications, consume them, purchase them, deploy them, gives you a unification on this architecture, gives you an industrialization that hasn't happened before. You don't need to go to 20 screens to run and manage your network. We have consolidated everything into a single pane of view, and that is an amazing disruption. I don't think this has ever happened in telecommunication networks. The idea of Symworld is disruptive, and the concepts that come with it, although we are at early days, Symworld, I think, is going to be the game changer. Symworld is not just only for Rakuten own application. We will absolutely open Symworld as an application store for everyone. We want Symworld to enable the fast-paced transformation that is needed into this industry and the industrialization that is required to be able to run at scale and manage at scale your network. It is absolutely the path to hyperscale.
So you say you want Symworld to be the app store for everything and everyone. What do you mean? What constitutes an app store?
I mean, I think if I take it, first of all, it is absolutely built for telecom. So it's definitely not intended for you to host gaming games and other things. So there's many of other app stores that exist today. But it is now our view that the consolidation of the entire network manageability application into a common application stack, the ability for you as a vendor partner to come and onboard and put your applications such that others could purchase it through our app store. If you really think about it in the essence of maybe your Android or iOS phones, it is the exact concept of what we all enjoyed on our mobile devices, but now we're taking it to the telecom industry. And all of these consolidation of application, if you take 2,000 applications and now we reduce them into a handful that you would need to run the entirety of your architecture, your network, whether it is from service assurance, fault management, performance management, configuration of this network, they're all now consolidated. And I think that's delivering not just only, of course, a significant cost reduction, but actually more of an operational efficiency that you're able to manage this network from just one consolidated view, one application store, one billing system. I think there's a lot of advantages that Symworld is going to bring to the telecom industry.
So here you are then, huge set of challenges, huge scale, effectively a blank sheet of paper to create a new mindset, a new way of working. What happened? What results have you seen so far?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing, if you really consider, our journey. I mean, again, as you mentioned earlier, Rakuten Symphony as an entity is a really infant startup. We're less than a year old, and when you look at the progress that we have made, from closing now to $3 billion in booking since we started, to me, that's a great progress. It shows clearly that the messages are of what Symphony want to do and what Symphony wants to solve as real problem have resonated with the market. It shows that we are approaching the problems from a completely different way, from addressing the architecture, addressing the operation, and addressing the way of how applications are delivered to our end customers. And also, it shows that Rakuten Symphony and its dedicated employees are looking at the problem a little bit differently. We recognize that to solve and address the pace of transformation that is required, we cannot just say, well, here is Symworld, here's our applications, and leave you to be able to consume this on our own. We recognize that we have to partner and collaborate, open up together, joint R&D and innovation center with our partners and our colleagues. The collaboration that we will drive and the announcements that you've heard and why we're investing, for example, in Europe, it is all about partnership collaboration for the better of the industry. So yes, indeed, I think the messages has been absolutely overwhelmingly positive. It does not mean that we don't have challenges, and I am not underestimating the complexity of scale that we have to do to build the delivery engine, to build the support engine, to build the engineering engine. But I can tell you, I am feeling confident that we are absolutely the right disruptor that is needed for this industry. I am feeling confident that we are the right collaborator, and our approach is all about inclusion. Symphony itself cannot exist without the help and the support of a larger ecosystem. So we're very optimistic, and so far the early signs look extremely promising for Rakuten Symphony.
Can I ask you, Tareq, is Symworld in a way building on the RIC ecosystem model of applications and developers?
That's one, also another great question, and thank you for asking this. I think Symworld does RIC plus. Symworld integrates the ideas and the concept of what RIC wants to do for X apps. And if you look at X apps today, it is thought of applications to do, maybe an example for you, real-time or non-real-time, self-organizing network applications to handle in closed-loop environment network optimization. But Symworld does that plus more. Symworld takes RIC to the next level. Symworld not only focus on the manageability of the network, but Symworld addresses also other application that horizontal organization might need. Let me give you an example of this. In addition to XApps and SON application and service assurance application, the application that you will find on Symworld could be as simple as unified horizontal digital workflow platform, customer experience management platform, So while the industry talks about RIC, we have evolved. And Symphony has evolved to do something much more bigger than RIC in terms of integration of all the great things the industry wants to do in RIC and incorporating all the other IT applications that a telecommunication company would need, all served within one consolidated view, consolidated architecture. So that's our view is RIC now as a platform collapse into Symworld architecture. Symworld is an absolute unified application store that will do a lot more than the X apps that are being envisioned for RIC.
Okay, well, you've done the hard work and now we are seeing the results. What does this allow you to do next? What's your roadmap going forward?
Well, I think we have a lot of responsibility in our shoulders. I mean, the first thing that I really would love to see is the adoption and the guidance that I look for the industry as a whole is how do we make Symworld the de facto app store? How do we open it up to third-party developers? I mean, I would love nothing else but to see a thriving ecosystem of open source communities that would come in to help us materialize, accelerate, and help us change this industry for the better. You know, I was, frankly speaking, the other day I was sharing with someone a keynote that I did 4 years ago when I came to Japan. That was my first week in Japan. And I had one slide, and my slide started with this conversation. And it said, you look at the world that we live in, you look at what COVID has forced us to do, and the dependencies and the criticality that we all have on connectivity. Yet, we still have over 2 billion people across this planet that don't have basics of connectivity. An aspiration goal for Symphony is to fast-pace industry transformation, work with our partners, maybe for the better of the industry to help a social responsibility to lower the costs and the burdens that goes with infrastructure. Those are big aspiration goals. We all know how big the path in front of us is going to be, or the challenges, but we are absolutely committed to take this on. I think it is a journey that is for all of us in Rakuten Symphony and Rakuten as a whole. We absolutely believe that the journey that Symphony is on is one that's going to enable sustainability for society, sustainability for industry. And I hope through industry collaboration, we'll be able to be recognized as a software platform company helping industry to fast pace their transformation.
Well, a few final points for you, Tareq. It's a competitive industry, we know this, and you'll always hear reasons why something new is just not possible or not feasible. So let me put quickly a few of those to you, and I'll start with this one, that this approach is simply not yet ready for prime time.
Well, I mean, let's take it in the same context. When I heard that Open RAN will not work in dense urban areas, again, these comments for me, it never bothered me or our team. But what we had to do, we had to show that we could build, a resilient architecture that is able to serve the most demanding. And believe me, nobody understands this. Maybe people in Japan will realize this. The most demanding consumers I have ever seen in life is the Japanese consumer. They tolerate zero quality issues. And if you have any quality issues, they will absolutely go on Twitter and let you know how they feel. So we knew that the bar was very high. Now, when we took this idea, I never accepted that this technology has no merit in urban environment. Tokyo is one of the densest in life. And yet, when we say it's not ready for prime time, I would say Tokyo is ready for prime time. This technology is absolutely ready for prime time. And so my feeling is, I think now we have proven that we are running a network at scale. We carry unbelievable amount of data in this network. And my fundamental belief was always just believe in software, believe in cloud, and it's just going to get better. It will always get better. Simple analogy, look at the desktop PCs that you use, whether it is a Windows or Mac. What happened from the early 90s till today? Software get evolved and it get better. And it will continue to get better because that's the nature of the software business. So my honest opinion, I do think that this technology stack is absolutely been validated. It's ready to go global. And an example of this is absolutely the trust that 1&1 in Germany have given Rakuten Symphony. And we cannot wait to show the capability of the technology and the performance of our stack, not also in Japan, but also in an unbelievable, high quality country like Germany.
Yes, looking forward to seeing some results from there, like the rest of the industry is. And as well as questioning the readiness, some may think that this multi-vendor approach is simply not as secure.
I have a very contradicting point of opinion on this. I actually think the current architecture is not secure. And allow me to elaborate a little bit on my thoughts. When you purchase platforms and boxes that are completely locked, have proprietary interfaces, you are basically outsourcing your trust to a vendor and say, you will be secure because I'm going to sign a contract with you, and you're going to tell me that you are secure. In the case of Rakuten Symphony and the technology it delivered to Rakuten Mobile and its global customers, the first thing that we do, all the way from the supply chain, understanding the components and the infrastructure that we use in anything that we build as hardware and appliances for this technology, we are one of the few that have ensured where these components are manufactured, where are they purchased from, where is the supply chains of these components come from. So that was a big issue. The issue is about securing not just the software, but I also wanted to secure the supply chain, the component, and the hardware part of our appliances. Now, the second thing, let me give you the example that we did in Open RAN. When the interfaces are open, I asked my team, I said, we have a really amazing opportunity. Why don't we put private certificate licenses on every interface, hindering the ability of any third-party company that could come in, whether it is wanted attack or unwanted attack. The ability for you to come into our system today is practically impossible. Of course, there is no 100% secure system, but I feel comfortable that I have 100% visibility. I feel super confident that I have implemented, to the best of our capability, the zero trust architecture into the DNA. We have abstracted user IDs, passwords. Those are gone. Those are things of the past. I could not do all of this with legacy architecture. So I do think that someone should be able to take what we have done, advance it. And in fact, now what we are doing is not to make this only a Rakuten story, but to go to the industry as a whole, to go to the ORAN forum and show them what we have done, especially around securing the most important thing for me in radio and the core component of this cloud network. I am extremely confident about the security apparatus, largely because for the first time ever, we have visibility. That is what you always need to have, 100% visibility, no black boxes, no proprietary interfaces. You need to control everything in your network. You need to be that command and center to address all security architecture in the network. And Rakuten Symphony is one of the few companies that deliver that absolutely trusted delivery model with 100% security. Zero trust architecture is inherited in the DNA of our platforms.
And there's also the sustainability argument, the green argument, that perhaps your approach is more expensive in terms of energy and power consumption.
Well, I think this topic around sustainability is a really important topic for all of us. I think now when you look at Rakuten, we have really set a very big ambition and goal for us for what we want to achieve for energy sustainability. When you look at our platform and our products, one should evaluate not just only how much our hardware consumes, but you should ask, it's a total formula that includes the hardware, the number of operational engineers, and the headcount that is needed to maintain and manage this network, the cars that they use to go to cell sites, and the various supporting mechanism in terms of other organization that is needed to run a network like Rakuten Mobile. First, we have one of the most advanced energy orchestration system that allows you to tune the software on our servers and infrastructure, lowering its footprint of consumption based on traffic. This is not possible on legacy architecture. Second, this network has one of the lowest headcounts that you would find in any telecommunication network. As our number of total sites on air increases, and in fact, we've announced this, that we now have over 200,000 cells on air, our operational headcount has been flat, around 180 individuals managing 200,000 cells. This is a world-breaking record. We don't employ that much employees to go manage and maintain the sites. We think when you look at the totality of energy consumption, I have no doubt this is one of the lowest that you would find in any traditional or legacy telecom network. But what would I tell you? I would love to invite the industry as a whole to help me study the energy footprint of Rakuten Mobile network as a whole, not just only focusing on the sum of small components. And let us use this as a case to really validate this cloud, this software architecture combined with an unbelievable headcount efficiency deliver on better energy sustainability targets than legacy equipment do today. We welcome anybody to come to Japan and really participate into this evaluation process. So I look forward to having people discuss this topic with me. This is a very, very important topic for myself and my team to ensure that we're building an absolutely highly efficient network that is sustainable in its DNA and architecture.
We should absolutely do that. Finally, Tareq, I want to go back to a point that I raised at the start of our discussion today, and that was a challenge you have for the industry, because it's easy for CSPs to sit back and ignore the changes until it's too late. It's far harder to proactively respond to them and explain your actions to the board. So tell us why you're so passionate about your approach. What questions should other CSPs be asking themselves right now?
You know, I mean, what I would encourage my colleagues to look at is please just look at your adjacent industries. Broaden your horizon and look what is happening across this world that we live in. I spend enormous time, believe me, researching, and especially an interesting area, which is the transformation that is happening in the auto industry. And in the essence of, the shortage of chipset supplies and the reasons behind that is because we now have adjacent industry that is consuming unprecedented supply of chipsets for their software that they need to run their platform on. The more you realize that the world is fast moving towards an autonomous world, a software world, a world that the AI takes an absolute presence, this transformation is now happening much faster than unfortunately all of us want it to be, but it's a reality. So you have two options. One option is you sit and watch, and unfortunately you might miss this journey, or you take a decisive action and you really say, time is now. Now it is a decisive way to look at opportunities of partnership and collaboration. Take some risk. It's okay. It will be hard work. It will not be perfect. You're going to go through ups and downs, but I think, working with the right partners, hopefully with Rakuten Symphony, you will find us that we are really passionate about changing the construct of how telco networks are built, engineered, and operated. I think time is of the essence, that we really look at ourselves and we embrace risk and transformation at a much faster pace maybe than what we have done in the past. There are absolutely many companies that are looking at how to support this journey. Rakuten Symphony would love to be one of those leading providers to provide you the expertise, not only on software platform, but really on innovation around organization and skill sets that one might need to look at to help through this phase of transformation.
You make your points very clearly, and thank you for your frank and detailed responses. It's been a fascinating discussion. Tareq, thank you very much indeed for joining us.